Why there could still be a chance that Aaron Donald unretires? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube. So if you have any ideas, a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and also let us know down below. What percentage chance do you think Aaron Donald will unretire next season? My name is Doug McCain. Friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. SI 24/7 Sports, Dodgers Nation. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He just finished his 8th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, Aaron Donald, he did an interview over an hour with his wife where he really unpacked a lot of things about his decision to retire. We got our big takeaways from that and a theory as to why Aaron Donald could unretire from a former Rams legend. That's coming up here. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning bet. $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, Travis, first of all, so the LA Times, they did a nice little tribute the Rams did yesterday. We got Legends Live Forever. I thought that was a really, really cool thing that the Rams did to just show their appreciation for who I think is probably the best player in franchise history. And really over the weekend, he did an interview with his wife, who, first of all, I don't know what she does with in her professional life, but she was just killed it doing that, man. She got hired on the spot. She did a fantastic job interviewing her husband about his career. And I think kind of the first thing is he just felt really comfortable in this situation. He felt really comfortable and he opened up. And the first big takeaway is one of my favorite things to ask any athlete is, what was your welcome to the NFL, welcome to Major League Baseball moment? When did you when did you know that you belonged? And for him, he said, was that when he tackled Adrian Peterson. He said, my first game against the Vikings, that was when they had Adrian Peterson. I see a light stance, knew the guard was pulling, I shoot it, boom. Met AP 6-7 yards in the backfield. It was confidence right away. So that definitely is cool to know that was that moment.
Yeah, look, guys like him just show up ready to go from the moment that the whole thing starts. And that he had a moment like that early in his career, not a huge surprise. That he has confidence, not a huge surprise. The surprise to me would be if Aaron Donald even for 1 second thought that he didn't belong on a football field, whether that's in high school, college, NFL, or anywhere in between. It was an amazing career, and I like what you said, D-Mac, about how he might be the best player in the history of this franchise. He might, right? There have been some other great players, whether you want to talk about Eric Dickerson or Deacon Jones or some of these other guys for sure. You know, Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk are certainly on that list, but all of that took place in another city, so I think that's almost in a separate category. But the one thing that is unequivocally true is that Aaron Donald is the best player in the history of the Los Angeles Rams 2.0, right? In the period of time that they've been back, he's been the guy that's been here the entire time, been a monster the entire time, been a guy that the entire team rallies around the entire time. So we'll see what comes up over the next 10, 15, 50 years here in Los Angeles. But certainly since 2016, when they came back to LA, Aaron Donald has been the backbone of this franchise.
Yeah, and absolutely to your point about him being one of the best players of all time and the best Ram of all time. Some players, their legacies grow after they retire. Some of them you look back and you're like, oh, maybe they weren't as great as we remember them. I think he's going to have a legacy that's going to grow because we're never going to see someone getting quad teamed, right? Triple teamed and things like that.
Yeah, and you're right. You know, there's some of those pictures that we saw, the Miami Dolphins having 4 guys on him when no one else is doing anything. Yeah. And then, you know, like you said, this is not a guy that did it from a linebacker position. This is not a guy that did it from an edge. This is a guy that did it from the interior line. And the further we get away from that, the more insane that's going to seem. I mean, This is a defensive tackle that was absolutely wreaking havoc on quarterbacks, on offensive line, on running backs. Just an amazing accomplishment in his career, and I'm glad that everybody's giving him his flowers because they're certainly well-deserved.
Absolutely. 111 sacks, 260 QB hits, 176 TFLs, 24 forced fumbles, 10 Pro Bowls, 3 Defensive Player of the Year. The list goes on for as far as accolades. But to see him in this setting, I thought it was such a great idea to have his wife do it because introverted people like that, first of all, he's a chatty. He chats a lot on the field. We know he can talk on the field, but off the field doesn't do a lot of talking. But getting this comfortable setting, I think he said more than I've ever heard him say in his entire career in that hour and 15-minute interview. I was on pins and needles with every word you can ask my wife. When he was crying, like I was literally kind of crying, getting emotional. She called me a loser. I'm like, come on, be nice. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm just so emotionally invested and so involved in this, like you said, giving Aaron Donald his roses walk-off tour. Like, I love this guy, right? And I think just seeing this interview made me appreciate him that much more because of the things he said. Now, the next big takeaway that really hit home for me was he almost left the Rams out of the 2016 season. And you can't fault the guy. I mean, first 3 seasons, Rams go 6-10, 7-9, 4-12. And at that point, he'd already established himself as an elite player, and he just wanted to win. He was sick of losing. And he would tell in the interview, that was my first holdout year. I was kind of mad at the organization. If you guys don't want me, just get rid of me. Send me somewhere that wants me. Experiencing a playoff game, that's what changed my football mindset. He talked about meeting Sean McVay at the Four Seasons Hotel. And they were like, okay, this is your new head coach. And he's like, where is he? And McVay was standing right there. He's like, hey, Aaron, and Aaron Donald felt that energy. And that's what allowed him to stay. So I don't know if there's any Sean McVay haters out there. I know some of them exist. But there should be zero ever after hearing that interview because he was the main reason why Aaron Donald stayed with the Rams for his entire career.
Well, I'll tell you what, and you mentioned that, Aaron Donald's the greatest player in LA Rams history. He might be, and he's certainly, the first statue that's going to go up at SoFi. All of those sorts of things are true. But I got to tell you, hearing that story right there, D-Mac, and watching what the Rams have looked like over the last 7 years, when the story of the LA Rams is written post return from St. Louis, chapter 1 is Sean McVay. And that because it's not just that he's taken them to a couple of Super Bowls, that they've won a Super Bowl, but think about what he did for Aaron Donald right there. That Aaron Donald decided, you know what, I'm staying. Aaron Donald goes somewhere else. Who knows what this looks like, right? That he has he being Sean McVay, that Sean McVay has the charisma, the energy, the skill, the ability to connect with players, the ability to connect with pretty much everybody he meets and convince them of his vision on how it's going to be is incredibly powerful. Because if Aaron Donald saw Sean McVay that first time and go, this guy is going to be the guy, yeah, right, get me the heck out of here, then who knows what happens there. So Donald, of course, on the field is going to be the guy that we talk about first and foremost. But when it comes to putting this franchise in a position to succeed, and we'll see what happens in the short term, medium term, and long term. But Sean McVay, the story of Sean McVay, man, I don't even know how this thing ends up because he's still on the other side of 40, he's still on the short side of 40. It's just a remarkable accomplishment. Go ahead and put that on Sean McVay's resume. He kept Aaron Donald in LA for another 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, give me a top 5 best first impressions of all time, right?
Right.
And you wouldn't expect anything less from Sean McVay. And Aaron Donald told him, he said, I want accountability. I want a coach that's going to hold my teammates accountable, and I want structure. And now that we've seen it played out, these two were a match made in heaven in their philosophies for going out, putting in the work every single day in the process of it. So really just you think of the pairing and how seamless they made it look and how these two guys were just a pillar of this franchise. Because let's not forget, before Cup went off, before we got Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald was the one constant with Sean McVay. So definitely a beautiful thing. But coming up next here on Locked On Rams, more from Aaron Donald's interview and why Aaron Donald could possibly unretire. That's coming up next. Got Locked On Rams.
Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. And what a first 4 days they were, right? Of course, you have the buzzer beaters, the overtime games, the heartbreakers, all of it. So whether you're betting on a big upset, I don't know, how does Oakland over Kentucky sound? Or you're all over a number 1 seed, Houston gets by, UConn looks great. It's time to go dancing on America's number 1 sportsbook because right now, New customers, you get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right, you heard it. $200 to use on point spreads, to use on money lines. You can even pick who you think is going to win it all. But you got to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. What are you waiting for? Put that FanDuel app on your phone, put in that code LOCKEDON, and get to work.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Think of making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Rams YouTube channel. And also a big shout out to our everyday listeners out there. We appreciate you watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. And you can be an every listener too. By the way, membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now here, Travis, in our second segment, going to kind of pick up on some takeaways from this episode. And I think the big takeaway here is all the greats, the sting of losing is so profound for these guys. Yep. And one thing that he admitted was that he said, I would try to chase stats. For me, by that time, I was a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, couple All-Pros, went to a Super Bowl. Main focus was to try and win run. But after losing that, main focus was just to win. So he was saying I was trying to chase stats, and then he was saying how he hated Tom Brady for the next couple of years. So that's really what put that next gear for Aaron Donald for the remainder of his career.
Yeah, look, it's so hard to try to crawl inside the mind of guys like this. It is so difficult to try to figure out what makes a guy like Aaron Donald go, or else everybody would be like Aaron Donald, right? What makes Tiger Woods, Tiger Woods? What makes Aaron Donald, Aaron Donald, or Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant? These guys that have this pathological need to win, this pathological need to compete and to stack numbers and to continue to work well beyond the point where they've already done enough, well beyond the point where they've already become one of the great players of their generation. Who knows, right? If there was a way to bottle that and sell it, you'd be the richest guy in the world. These are different guys. They're wired differently. And this is why I am always, when they decide to go away, I'm always like, okay, you've earned the right for sure. You've done it, but what's going to scratch that itch next? And I'm always really curious to see what that is. But yeah, that he decided, they wake up in the morning and who knows what it is that's going to motivate them throughout that day. Is it chasing Tom Brady? Is it making sure that you have the most majors ever? Is it making sure that you get 81 points in a game? I don't know what it is. I just know that there aren't a lot of people that are wired like that.
So yeah, that's the big thing, is what really would drive him. I think for me, like he said I accomplished everything and more to be considered the best player in the NFL, to win the accolades that I did. I just feel like there's nothing I didn't get to feel as individual success or team success. I felt every low and every high. I mean, you can add a couple more first-team All-Pros. You can add some more Defensive Players of the Year if you want. But I think at this stage of his career, he's secure in the individual success.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of, look, is that going to kick in around the bye? Right. Is it going to kick in if the Rams are 5-4, if they have a better record than that, if they look like they're a Super Bowl contender? Because he said in this interview, there's just something different about the playoffs, the atmosphere, the fans, how it just took him to a whole nother level. And look, he does a lot of great things. I mean, he's got his Ready brand, AD99 solutions, all this stuff. Look, these guys can tell you everything they want. Nothing will replace the juice of playing in a game. So that's what you're going to need. You're going to need him to somehow wake up one day and say, I want to play again. And it's a matter of, the only thing I had to say about that, Travis, though, is with his routine and his offseason routine, does he continue that to a degree? Like, let me see him around Thanksgiving or let me see him around October. How's the body looking? Can we still see the abs through the shirt? Because if he's kind of enjoying retirement a little bit, we'll know by then how he's going to be. So I'm interested to see those public appearances. Yeah, no, you're right. This is what takes me back to when Sean McVay was toying with the idea of deciding to retire and potentially going to do TV or taking some time off. And while it was nerve-wracking because you don't want to lose a coach like that, I kept coming back to exactly what you just said, which is, where's he going to get the juice?
Where do you get this that isn't this, right? Where do you get the juice of a scoreboard? Where do you get the juice of a win and a loss? Where do you get the juice of physically dominating a guy across from you? Sean McVay going into a TV booth and calling a Raiders-Broncos game on a Thursday night is not going to give him any juice. Yeah. Preparing to beat the 49ers and doing it does give him the juice. Well, the same's true for the players, right? I know that he's full. I know that he's satisfied, that he feels like the passion is gone. I believe him. But I also believe that once it starts and he's trying to find a way to scratch that itch, he's trying to find a way to get that juice again, and then he looks at his football reference page and realizes he's still the best player in the league, that juice may only be able to be found on the field. I don't know, but it's not 100%, 0% chance he comes back, because think about Magic Johnson comes and goes. Michael Jordan comes and goes. These guys just can't walk away from it when they got something left in the tank. So I'm holding out hope. Maybe it's just me being a Rams fan and wanting number 99 to come back, but I don't think it's a zero. I don't think it's likely, but I also don't think it's the longest shot in the world.
Yeah, no, I'm selfishly hoping he does come back. As far as individual stuff, he's tied Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor, and Bruce Smith for the most first-team All-Pros with 8. The most of the NFL, as far as defensive players, Jerry Rice and Jim Otto have the record at 10. So there's those kind of things, but all those types of awards and those accolades aren't going to be there if he returns during the season. And that's something to consider. I think it's basically he would return because he wants to play and he wants to compete for another Super Bowl.
Yep.
That's pretty much the biggest thing. And I think, too, if you look at the way his contract is structured, it's literally designed for him to return. So that really – everything points to, okay, we'll welcome you back with open arms. If for any reason you want to come back, hey, it's like Thanksgiving. After Thanksgiving, I eat a ton of plates and I'm pretending like I'm full. I'm like, I'm good. I won't eat for a week. Literally 30 minutes later, I'm just like back there, like, yeah, I mean, the game's on.
Have a sandwich.
Yeah, I'll make a sandwich out of that. You know, it's like we've been full before only to keep eating, right? I mean, right. You know about a bang bang, right? Where you eat and then you go to 2 restaurants right back to back. So it's like, I'm just saying, this is someone who's his love for football could be too deep. Doubt. In his prime. But coming up next, we're going to talk about a theory from Marshall Faulk that's really ties into what we've been talking about, why Marshall Faulk thinks that Aaron Donald is going to be back possibly for this season. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Travis, Marshall Faulk, who is like a lot of us, is just in disbelief, like he said, and he is trying to concoct a conspiracy theory that he thinks that Chris Jones, that he's going to be back. He said on a recent interview that about Aaron Donald, he saw the contract that Chris Jones got. This is in my head, and I'm like, he wants more money. He wants to be the highest paid. Now, it looks good for Hollywood right now. I see he's spending a lot of time with The Rock. He might end up on the WWE. Who knows? All of that might be in his plans, but that's just in my head. Training camp's going to roll around. I'm telling you, every professional football player, it's weird when you're done playing and everyone else is going to camp and you're not playing. You're like, what do I do? So he's suggesting that he's looking at Chris Jones's contract. And that's something about Aaron Donald that we've seen is this is a guy who loves the game, but also knows his worth and will get the bag and he'll get paid. We saw after the 2021 Super Bowl, he was considering retiring then before Sean McVay kind of convinced him to come back at that time. So thoughts on that?
Well, look, at the end of the day, and I think as fans, and people that are listening to the pods and the everydayers that check us out all the time, thank you for that, by the way, that we hear this and we kind of go, we roll our eyes like, yeah, right. But the fact of the matter is money is not just money to these guys. Money is how they are respected in their minds. Do you think I'm the best player in the league? Well, then why don't I make the most money? It's literally as simple as that. And I don't know if that's what this is, but I'm always willing to listen to it. If this is an opportunity to come back, make the most money, get the respect that he feels he deserves, and I don't think that he has any hard feelings towards the Rams. The Rams have taken care of him. The Rams have paid him incredibly handsomely for a very long time. But I get that. There is something to, hey, look, I want to be treated a certain way. I want to be shown the respect that comes along with being the highest paid player. And that kind of bounces back and forth depending on when you've signed and when the most recent guy is to sign. I think the larger thing is what happens when camp starts. I think if we get through a season, right, if the 2024 season gets played and Aaron Donald doesn't get the itch, I think he's done, right? But if we get to, like you said, D-Mac, maybe get to Halloween, maybe get to Thanksgiving, and all of a sudden it's that you start to hear that, I kind of miss it and all this stuff. Then all of a sudden, I think that's when it gets pretty interesting, because I'm sure his body feels pretty good right now. When training camp starts, I'm sure his body's feeling pretty good, but he's going to tell himself, this is why you decided not to do this. Don't come back. But at some point, it's like, this is what I am. This is what I do. This is literally my entire identity, and I can still do it. This is not somebody that was broken down in a shadow of themselves and barely holding on. He's still an elite level player. And I think just turning that switch off is very, very difficult to do until you've done it. And whether it's all the NFL people that I've worked with, and the person I've spent most of my time with is Kirk Morrison, and he's told me the same thing. He goes, once you're all the way out, you look back and go, I don't even know how I ever did that. So that's going to take a little bit of time. But I do think we have to get through the entire 2024 season before we can completely put the idea of a comeback to rest.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was saying, anytime he's at an event and he's going out in the Valet Parker, is bringing his Bentley and he's walking around, look at his physique. Does he look like game shape AD? And when he's getting into his car too, what are all the fans going to be saying? AD, you coming back? AD, when are you coming back? Right? He's going to be asked this a ton until we go through an entire season and he does not return. But I agree. Look at the way that the option is there to come back from a contract standpoint. They would welcome back with open arms. But I would say if Otani's former interpreter, Ipe Mazuhara, called me and asked me if he'd bet on it, I would say don't bet on it. I would tell him not to if he was asking me. But I will say,
he would do it anyway.
He probably would do it. He probably has. He probably did.
Well, just do whatever you want when you don't have to pay the debts. Who cares if you win?
Yeah, who cares, right?
Right.
You got your sugar daddy player, Shohei. But interesting thing though, Rams have the second most expensive offense in the NFL, $178.1 million. At $55.9 million, that's the lowest defense as far as how much they're spending on their defense. So
this is going to be a work in progress. The Rams in the 2024 season, what's today? March 25th. As we're sitting here on March 25th, the Rams are going to win games 38-35. That's how they're going to have to go into this season. We'll see what it looks like after the draft. We'll see what it looks like once training camp starts. We'll see what it looks like halfway through the season, because a lot of things can change. But as of right now, this is a team that's leading with its offense, and the defense will be a work in progress, because it's almost impossible to even know what you have until you play a little bit without Aaron Donald, because he was such an overwhelming presence in everything that you did.
No doubt about it. Either way, this is someone who went out on his own terms. He retired a Ram, and you love that. Hope he's involved in the franchise in any capacity moving forward, almost like an Andrew Whitworth type. I want to see him involved in this Rams franchise until he moves elsewhere, just stays in LA. But that's good over this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McKinney. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. You can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.